Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. You may have heard the expression in your life, may you live in interesting times. Well, that's what we're doing right now. We're living in interesting times, especially if you consider the concept of standard being broken and overplayed. No, it's not going to be overplayed. It's probably going to be underplayed. Standard being broken and overpowered going forwards. We're looking at more of the same. Basically what we've been getting, the Field of the Dead scenario, the Oko scenario, we're looking for more of that going forwards because Wizards of the Coast R&D is now Wizards of the Coast play design. And they have a new philosophy. And Throne of Eldraine, the power level that we're seeing right now, that's the new normal for standard. This is a crazy new world that we're moving into. And a part of me goes, oh no, what are you doing? And another part of me goes, let's see how ridiculous this tire fire can get. Let's watch this dumpster fire blaze up into the sky and warm our hands in front of it. Oh Lord, there was an article put out on Wizards' website yesterday. Now I needed some time to kind of digest the article and its contents so that I could bring this concept to you guys and talk about it. But overall, basically the summary of it is that Eldraine was busted, and we're going to keep doing that going forwards. The power level of Eldraine is what they're shooting for now. Basically, the article starts out talking about how the time from battle for Zendikar up until about the start of the Ravnica block, they intentionally underpowered standard. And it's funny that one of the reasons to say, oh, we don't want to do that is because then you'll have certain cards warping the format. Like, look at Smuggler's Copter. Smuggler's Copter warped the format, and it wouldn't have been able to do that if the sets we had designed had been more strong. And I'm just like, wait, let me get this straight. Your argument is that stronger sets make it so that it's harder for cards to warp them. And yet, we have what is your idea of the pinnacle of highest power sets. They said Throne of Eldraine is like the highest level power that they're shooting for in the current standard. And yet, Oko warped things more than anything. Smuggler's Copter was something everybody threw into decks they were already going to play. Where it's just like, oh, do you have creatures? All right, we'll throw in some Smuggler Copters. Oko warped everything so much that the only answer in standard was to play green-blue Oko or green-blue answer to Oko. That's it. That's literally it. So they try and say the reason that they needed to move away from underpowered sets is because there's too much of a potential for the format to be warped. I mean, we're living in Bizarro World. When Throne of Eldraine got spoiled, I remember seeing Questing Beast and the sheer number of abilities on Questing Beast, and my first reaction was like, oh my god, look at this green goodness. And my second reaction was, this seems busted. Like this, even for a mythic, this seems crazy and pushed with the number of abilities on it. But in Throne of Eldraine, the way it is right now, Questing Beast isn't even like top of the pile. After playing with Questing Beast compared to the other stuff that exists in Standard, you go, oh, all right, Questing Beast is pretty good, but it's by no means over the top. And that's crazy. That's a crazy indicator of the power level that we are dealing with. So the article talks about how moving forwards, we're moving away from these underpowered sets and they're like marquee sets, and marquee sets are whatever the current like standard set is, whatever they're using to sell standard. They need to be more powerful. So they have a new design philosophy. Before they used a system of like PowerPoints to try and figure out, okay, we've got this power, we'll move it over here and whatever. And now they're using a new concept, which I have to admit is amazing. The philosophy is called FIRE, F-I-R-E. It stands for fun, inviting, replayable, and exciting. Now that's the concept they're going for. Now think about standard. Think about the Oko standard. Think about the Field of Dead standard. Did that feel fun? Did it feel inviting? Did it feel replayable? Did it feel exciting? I don't think so. But what's even more delicious to me about this is Wizards is literally playing with fire. They're playing with fire now. it's gonna burn all of us. So they're intentionally powering up sets. Now, when you read through the article, they go, well, we're trying to have a higher power level, but cards like Oko were not our intention. And then they go on to talk about how it's like, you know, play design needs to not just be play testing, guys, okay? We need to not have a focus on play testing, guys. It's play design, okay? So we're just gonna design the cards and not really play with them that much. Honestly, that was the vibe I got from the article. It came across as very defensive in terms of, oh, you know, we shouldn't really have to like play test the cards very much, guys. That's not our problem. Like, who cares if Standard's a fiery mess? We didn't intend Oko being what he wasn't intended. Guys, what happened was we designed Oko, and then we designed other cards, and we started making other cards more powerful, and then we were like, well, we want Oko to be powerful, so we'll just make Oko more powerful, but not test him more. So basically, it's just like saying, we can't just be a playtest. It's like, look, that's your job. Your job is to design the cards and test them. Not just, it's not called D&D, design and dump. You know what I mean? It used to be called research and development. They walked away from that name because I guess they don't want to do the research into figuring out whether the cards work anymore, and they don't want to develop it by play testing. So now they just call it play design. And it's like, that doesn't make it okay. It doesn't make it okay to build busted, dumb, nonsense sets. And they talk about how they basically like pushed hard into areas that they knew were risky. Like, we knew 3-mana planeswalkers were risky and we overshot it. Really? Really? You overshot it? I mean, look at the band announcement from yesterday where they said Oko invalidated virtually every permanent that costs more than him. Think about that for a second. Oko invalidated every permanent, essentially every permanent in Standard that costs more than 3 was invalidated by 1 card. It's such a massive screw up that it's nothing but funny to me. So why are they doing what they're doing? Well, they said that when they underpowered Standard, what happened was they focused on more expensive casting costs to experiment around with and make cards that might be interesting outside of the constructed environment, otherwise known as cards that would reach into like other formats, right? Because they're looking at Standard, but they're talking about how they weren't making things really, and I'm paraphrasing here, is they weren't making things that reached out into Modern, that wouldn't reach out into Pioneer, Commander, Tabletop Magic. Essentially what they were designing was so underpowered from their perspective that people would only play it in Standard, and they were useless outside of Standard, and a lot of cards were only useful inside of like Standard draft environments. Now, Wizards doesn't want that. Why don't they want that? Well, it all comes down to this sweet, sweet cheddar, my friends. How it works is, when a card is played in more formats other than Standard, it impacts the financial value of that card. Look at Oko, for example. Oko got banned in Standard, and it didn't immediately drop to being a $3 mythic. One of the reasons for this is its power level. And because of its power level, it reaches out into formats like Modern, Vintage, and as a result, the price of the card stays higher because people want it. There was a bunch of people who were excited about Oko getting banned because they were hoping it will push the card down to a price point they could buy it at. So even when a card that's that powerful gets Standard banned, it still equals having financial value on the secondary market. And when cards have value on the secondary market, that means Wizards of the Coast will sell more product overall. Having a card banned, if you don't have a bunch of big impressive cards in a set that people want, it's going to be harder to get people to buy the packs. That's Wizards' philosophy now. They want cards that reach outside of Standard. If you look underneath everything, what they're saying is, we are willing to have a broken, unfun Standard environment again and again if it means that we can have cards that reach outside of Standard and have a higher value to players across the board. Now, this does not bode well for Standard, but on the upside for people like me, I have my perp cube, and I only need 1 of any given card for it. I don't care about Standard, so busted, dumb, silly nonsense goes in there. Oko, for example, is a prime cube card. Once I have an Oko, I don't have one yet, once I have an Oko, he will go into my cube. So it's that sort of mentality that Wizards is kind of banking on, where people want cards outside of Standard. I think Wizards has finally accepted the reality that they can't force everybody into Standard. For the longest time, it seemed like that was the route Wizards was taking. You would see it on Arena, where they hid the historic format. You can only play Brawl once a week, even though that uses Standard cards, trying to keep you in the Standard box. In the invention of Brawl was an attempt to rope Commander players into the Standard box. It failed miserably because it's like, hey guys, how'd you like to, instead of having 25,000 different options, how'd you like to have 1,500 options? Wait, what? Yeah, how'd you like to play with 4% of the options you have? Yeah, no. How about no? How about no to that? So they've signaled from the products that they're offering, the things that they're doing, they're no longer treating Standard as their golden baby. Yes, it matters a lot to their sales. For sure it does. But they're realizing that appealing to a broader market, I mean, look at things like Modern Horizons, designed to add cards specifically to Modern. They don't care if it shakes it up. At the end of the day, Wizards doesn't care that much if they have to ban things, as long as they've gotten their money and sold their product. So Modern Horizons comes out specifically skewed to affect Modern, obviously, but also had a bunch of cards to tease the Commander players. The Commander players are starting to become Wizards' golden goose, really. If you look at the way things are going, it makes sense. Having a wide range of cards that appeal outside of Standard, that's going to really appeal to Commander players, Kitchen Top players. Kitchen Top players are a big demographic as well. They're a little harder to market to, though, because each one's going to have its own particular budget. There's only particular cards they're going to want. Commander is the closest thing you can get to an organized format that also overlaps with kitchen table Magic. Kitchen table Magic isn't a lot of people shuffling up to play Standard. That's just Standard happens in F&M and other more competitive environments. So Commander is the sweet spot, and you can see how much they're leaning into Commander with the insane amount of product they're going to be putting out for Commander in 2020. The writing is on the wall. Standard is no longer going to be managed in the most effective way for Standard, because it all boils down to sales no matter what. Originally, the concept was get everybody into Standard, manage Standard well so you can keep selling Standard boosters, all that sort of thing. But now it's a matter of, if we can reach outside of Standard and get people interested in these cards, we can still sell the booster boxes to people. People will still buy these boxes to get singles that they want for their Commander decks or tabletop Magic. And when you look at it from that frame, it makes more sense to allow your Standard players to be unhappy at the end of the day. Oh, you don't like the broken format? Oh, well, we'll ban that card for you. Don't worry. It's still available and all this other stuff, and its prices will stay relatively stable. We'll still be able to sell packs, and it will just go like that going forwards. So it's a situation where every set going forward is going to be developed with the same mindset they had for Core 2020 and Throne of Eldraine, which means the likelihood of there being broken, busted, dumb nonsense is through the roof. I think we are genuinely entering a new era of consistent and regular Standard bans. And if you think I'm off base, let me just clue you into this fact. Yesterday's ban announcement, it said the next ban announcement's next month. They've moved, without actually announcing it, they've moved up to having their bans once a month. They're going to try and play this dicey game of how broken can we make Standard and yet still have people play Standard and not flee from it in droves. What I want to know is, how many times can you break Standard in a row with crazy nonsense before it permanently negatively impacts Standard? I mean, when are they going to pull back on this? How much decrease in attendance are they going to need to see in their Standard events in paper and in Arena for this to ultimately lead to them going, we need to pull it back? And remember, Wizards is a slow-rolling beast. If you think to yourself, oh, well, they've learned from Oko and they won't be making these mistakes, understand, Theros was already printed. Like, we already got spoiled packs of Theros being opened. Theros was already printed, like, what, a month ago? A couple weeks ago, at least? Like, a couple months in advance. Wizards works way out in advance. We're looking at least at a year or two of broken Standard, where they push the power level of cards, make changes at the last minute, because that's what they did with Oko. They made changes at the last minute, and they're like, look, We're play design. We can't expect it to be play testing the cards. We want to play with fire, son. We got to get that fire out the door. So we're entering a new realm where we're going to see more and more broken stuff. They go, we intend the Throne of Eldraine to be strong, but we didn't intend Oku to be as strong as he is. It's like, well, I'm glad you didn't intend that, but your intentions don't matter when you're not going to sufficiently test your own cards. Like, you know where the dangers are. They know where the danger zones are. They talked about it. 3-mana Planeswalker that invalidated pretty much all of Standard, and they're just going to mess around in that space. Like, I have to admit, the old me from before, I would have been ranting and raving and going full boss monster, but it's like a parody of reality. I love it. It's like they took all the lessons they learned in the past about not making broken, dumb nonsense, and they're like, let's throw that out the window. Let's change the name of R&D to play design. Let's throw away everything we've learned and just push to the max. Let's go absolutely crazy. So Standard is we're going to be living in interesting times. Whether we're going to be living in playable times is a completely different matter. But hey, on the upside, I'll be getting some interesting, cool stuff from my cube while I sit back and you know what's great about that FIRE acronym? That's what they're doing to Standard. They're setting it on fire. Oh God, is it going to be like one of those oil fires? You know, they like, oh, the oil fires have been burning for 50 years now. Is that what we're looking at? Oh God, it's amazing. It's so crazy to me. They're just like, whatever, who cares? I'm making that money, son. Oh God, anyways, let me know what you think about all this. Is this gonna affect you? Are you a Commander player, don't care, you're gonna get more goodness? Are you somebody who loves Standard and competitive play? Are you groaning inside about what a nightmare everything's about to become? Let me know how you guys feel. I needed a good chuckle, so this was all right from that regard. Thanks everybody for coming by. Big shout out to all of my patrons and channel members. Thanks very much for supporting the work that I do. And remember, no matter how bright the fire burns, together we are the 6th color of magic.